Hello and welcome to Good Evening Britain, a Force for Good's weekly show coming to you live from our studios here in the heart of the great British city of Glasgow, with me, your host, Alistair McConnachie. We are broadcasting on all our digital platforms throughout the United Kingdom and across the world. We're bringing you quality pro-UK comment and analysis every Wednesday from 7 until 8 p.m. on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, and on TikTok. Folks, please do hit the like button. Please do give us a share. If you're watching on X, please give us a repost. That's the way we get the message out on this day. And what a day. This day only comes around every 4 years. And of course, it's the day after perhaps the biggest democratic election in the Western world, which is always the election for the President of the United States of America. And to many people's surprise, Donald Trump pulled it off. And we're going to be talking about that tonight. We're going to be talking about how did he manage it? And what, importantly, does it mean for the United Kingdom? Because it's all very well talking about what's going on in America, but how is it happening over here? What's going to make the difference over here? How's it going to affect us here in the United Kingdom? Now, some of you may have your own points of view on that. Some of you may have some ideas as to how Donald Trump managed to win it this time round. And some of you will have some ideas on how it's going to affect our country here in the United Kingdom. If you have got any such ideas, please do share them with us. We will read them out if we get the opportunity. Please also send us your greetings, folks, and send us any comments that you have and any questions that you have on the matter. It's going to be a great show. We're going to be here until 8 p.m. At the bottom of the hour at 7:30, we'll have a competition for our classic AFFG Union Heart badge. That can be yours if you get our question right, which will refer to our On This Day in British History segment. And all you need to do is to send your answer to contact@aforceforgood.uk. And this could be yours. You can also, of course, buy this if you wanted from our shop also at aforceforgood.uk/shop-1. Good. But in the meantime, folks, let's get the likes and the shares and the retweets and the subscribes to us on YouTube going, because we have a hard time on YouTube. We've got 5,600 followers. We should have 10 times that, I can tell you. We should have 10 times that for the amount of content that we put out every week. Anyway, one of our videos this week got 4,000 views, which is good for us on YouTube. We're well pleased about that. And that was the video that we cut from our video last week on the fact that a population the size of Paisley is coming into Scotland per year for long-term settlement. A population the size of Paisley. And we spoke about that last week. And the next day, we actually put all that together into an article. So if you want to see where we got that information from, if you want to see how those numbers compare to the populations of the towns and cities throughout Scotland, then go to our new article and we'll get the link to that out in the threads, and we'll have it in the description box below as well, folks. Population bigger than Paisley planted in Scotland per year, and yet the SNP has the cheek, the Green Party has the cheek, and Labour has the cheek to tell us that our population is declining. And, you know, we're writing our volume 2 of a big book for the Union, which is going to be about this topic. It's going to be about protecting our borders. And we've been going through all our detailed files, and we were reminded that back in 2003, the so-called Labour administration of Holyrood had a big plan. They called it the Fresh Talent Plan, to do just that, to import lots of immigrants into Scotland. We'll talk about that in another programme. But they had that plan, and I was looking at the figures, and the figures were nowhere near the numbers that are coming in at present, without anybody other than a force for good and the people who are supportive around us. We're the only people talking about this in Scotland at the moment, and we're going to be the only people talking about it as well in the next few months in the run-up to the Scottish election in 2026, which is about 18 months away. Anyway, let's say hello to some people coming in before we get to the substance of our programme, which will be talking about the Trump victory, how it happened, and what it means for us here in the United Kingdom. Brian on TikTok says, every day we see our communities getting changed. That's right. Absolutely. TC says, good evening, Alistair McConnachie and his AFFG crew. Derek Hart says, good evening, Alistair and fellow unionists around the world. Another victory for Trump. Debbie Beer says, good evening. The lesser of the two evils won, in my opinion. Kat says, hey, hey, hey. As does Oksana, says, hi all. Hi to Oksana. Eric says Labour will have a lot of grovelling to do because, of course, they haven't been entirely kind to Donald Trump. At least David Lammy has not been entirely kind to him. But they're just going to have to deal with him, aren't they? Because he's now the big fish across the pond. Catherine says hello from Buxton. And Anthony says hello, everyone. Eric says Trump won't forget the tweets of certain political leaders, like the elephant in your profile there, Eric. I don't think Trump forgets very easily. Fireworks are still going off outside. They're still going off outside as I speak at the moment. I don't know if you can hear them on the microphone. I like to hear fireworks. Some people don't, but I do, because it reminds us of our British heritage, which, of course, is what November the 5th is all about. And it's one of the reasons why the SNP don't like fireworks. I know I'm getting a little bit obtuse there, but it's actually true. If they could, they would shut down all celebrations of Bonfire Night, because they don't like what it reminds them of. And in fact, they have tried severely to restrict the purchase of fireworks. I'm not sure how successful that's been, though, but I know that they were trying to. Anthony has shared the programme. Thank you, Anthony. And Scotland Scorpion says, good evening, all. Well, good evening. And what a morning it was. I went to bed last night about 3:30, and it looked like Trump was going to win. But my position was, well, we don't know, because there's only 7 states in America that really count. And those are what's called the swing states. And the swing states are Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Nevada, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. And Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin are what's called the Rust Belt states. And you have to win at least one of those, really. One of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Ideally, you want to win as many as possible, but you have to win at least one. And you really have to win the other 4, which is Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, and Nevada. All the other states At this stage, we know they're probably going to go either blue or red, but it's the 7 swing states. And by 3:30, it was still really anybody's guess because we didn't have the results. So I thought, well, I'm not going to stay up because, like many people, I thought this could go on anyway for the next 2 months if it's anything like 2020. So I went to bed, woke up, was, I must say, surprised. I was surprised because after what happened in 2020, I didn't think that Trump would win it because of the demographic changes that there's been since 2020. And simply because of the powers really that are raged against him in that sense. But he did pull it off, and he is now the first man that I'm aware of, the first president ever to win 3 elections in a row. YouTube, that was a joke. That was a joke, YouTube. Okay. I am joking. I do understand that Biden won it fair and square in 2020. We all understand that. But that was just my little joke. Anyway, how did he manage that? Well, firstly, let's just look at the results anyway. Last time I looked, there was 3 states still to be announced. But the thing with America, of course, it's not a strict democracy. It has what's called an electoral college system. And so you can lose the popular vote, as Trump did in 2016, but you can win the electoral college votes. If you win a state, you get an electoral college vote. And some states have more electoral college votes than others, depending upon their population. And the smaller states, the states with fewer people, have proportionately more electoral college votes, which is actually a good idea because it enables the smaller states to compensate for the fact that they don't have a large population. And it takes away power from, to an extent, the big areas of concentration in the cities. And sometimes I've wondered if an electoral college system would actually be quite a good fit for the UK, because in the UK, we have huge areas which are relatively unpopulated. I'm thinking of Scotland. And yet you have one area, London, which is hugely populated and has more MPs than even the whole of Scotland returns. And is that strictly democratically balanced when you think about it? Possibly not. I'm not advocating an electoral college for the UK, but I've often thought about it and thought, how would it work here? Anyway, it works in America. And if you get a certain amount of votes in the electoral college, then you become the president. And it's clear that Trump has got those votes. It became clear towards the later hours of the early morning. So let's look where it's standing at the moment. Put up the results banner there. Trump has got 294 electoral college votes, which is almost 72 million people. And Harris has 223, which is around about 67 million people. These numbers are down considerably from the crazy numbers which were being reported back in 2020. So let's go to the next pick here. That's how the system's looking at the moment. Now, the blue states are the Democrat states. The red states are the ones won by the Republicans. And the striped states, striped in red, are the ones which have been won by the Republicans but were previously Democrat. So what you see there is, and the gray states there, Maine. How on earth they don't have an answer for Maine by this stage, I don't know. And then Nevada and Arizona over on the left there. They're still to be announced. But even if they all went to Kamala, she still wouldn't get enough electoral college votes from those 3 states to make much of a difference at all. The big surprise was the Rust Belt states up there at the top in the red stripes, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania all went to Trump. Now, in Wisconsin, it was 49.6 to Trump, 48.8 to Kamala. In Michigan, it was 49.8 to Trump, 48.3 to Kamala. And in Pennsylvania, it was 50.5 to Trump and 48.5 to Kamala. So these are pretty close. These are pretty close. What was it in Georgia? Let me go down and see. In Georgia, it was 50.7 to Trump and 48.4 to Kamala. So you see how tight that is. And if you did want to do some jiggery pokery, you wouldn't need that many votes to throw it another way. But thankfully, we're not saying that's ever happened, of course, YouTube, but you could see why some people would think that that was a possibility, because even though America is a massive place, it only comes down to a few states, and then it only comes down to a few percentages. And then it only really comes down to a few big cities in those states. But this time around, it really does. It's gone to Trump. Okay, let's put up the next pic. And this is this is looking at the types of people who voted. 54% of men who voted Trump. 44% of women who voted for Trump. 55% of whites voted for Trump. 12% of blacks for Trump. 45% of Latinos for Trump. 38% Asian, which in America means what we would call Chinese people. No. Yes, it does. That's what they call Asians in America. 53% others. Age groups, large number of young people below the age of 29, 42% voting for Trump. Between 30 and 44, 46% for Trump. Between 45 and 64, 53% for Trump, and 65 or over. Seems to be pretty balanced there between Harris and Trump. Okay, so he pulled it off, which is really quite remarkable. And you know what? In some ways, firstly, I just want to say big thank you to Knights Hospitaller, who's given us a £2 super chat, who says, my message for Harris and the Democrats is ha 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 ha. Yeah, as I was saying, it's maybe just as well that Trump lost in 2020, because if he had lost in 2020, then he would be saying goodbye to us all in January. And that would be probably the last that we would hear of him. But as it is, we're not going to be saying goodbye to him, God willing, until January 2029. So his loss in 2020 has actually allowed him to remain a political force in America for an awful lot longer than his opponents would have liked. What they thought they were going to do was they were going to get rid of him in 2020, and that would be the end of him. And at best, they would jail him and everybody would forget about him, and that would be it. But it hasn't quite worked out the way that they thought. So that's an interesting thing to consider when you get down to it. So let's look at the reasons why, in my view, Trump has won this time around. And I believe that in 2016, Trump clinched it. He just clinched it by the skin of his teeth, really, because as I said earlier, he lost the popular vote to Hillary, but he won the Electoral College. But the reason that he got in 2016 was because of the new power of social media, in particular, the power of Twitter and YouTube especially, which allowed people to get it straight from the horse's mouth, and the power of Google as well in searching for various matters as well. So he was able to bypass the traditional media, which was extremely hostile to him in 2016, even more hostile to him in 2020, because in 2016 he was a slightly different man than what he is now. He was extremely energetic. He was extremely radical in the sense of ending free trade, ending globalization, building a wall. Mexico's going to pay for it, and isolationist as far as keeping America out of foreign conflicts is concerned. And the people who misrule the world don't like anybody who's anti-globalist, who is for peace, and who is against mass freedom of movement. They don't like somebody like that. So that was going to overturn their world entirely. And he did his best in 4 years. But what we discovered, of course, was when he got elected, he did not have the team behind him, because he was literally leading the way, and there hadn't been time for people to really get with the program. So he got into Washington and he found that nobody really agreed with him. So he found it very difficult to put a team together to bring in all of those changes. But he did move the dial a little bit. He did get people talking about the dangers of globalization. He did build a bit of the wall. He did help to mainstream immigration restriction. And he did to a fairly large extent, to an extent that no real politician had done before him, and kept America out of foreign conflicts. And I'd like to think he's still that man. Although, so what happened when he won in 2016 is like YouTube and Twitter, which, remember, wasn't owned by Elon Musk. All of these people thought, oh, crikey, we've allowed our platforms to be used for this man to get power. And so there was a curbing of freedom of speech on all of these, what I would call legacy social media platforms. And that really hurt him when 2020 came around, because if we remember, in 2020, Twitter was openly suppressing news stories that would be advantageous to the Trump campaign. There was the whole carry on about Hunter Biden's laptop, which was being deliberately suppressed by the legacy social media, information that would have helped Trump's campaign. So the opponents in the legacy social media structure had learned their lesson in 2016, and they didn't allow Trump to be able so easily to exploit that. By the time 2020 came around, it was a lot harder for him to do so. Now, in the interim, things have moved the other way, because especially thanks to Elon Musk and his purchase of Twitter, which to a very large extent has totally opened up political free speech. Not, of course, entirely, but politically it has done so much, as has another development, which was TikTok, owned by the Chinese. But TikTok has also opened up political information to a whole new generation of younger people as well. Don't get me wrong. There's lots of stuff on TikTok that's not particularly good or enlightening. But there's a lot of stuff that is really eye-openingly interesting on TikTok as well. So TikTok and Twitter have really opened up freedom of speech, and that's had a big impact upon people hearing Trump directly as well as the kind of things that Trump's been talking about, mainstreaming like anti-globalism, mainstreaming immigration restriction, mainstreaming anti-war positions, especially. And people who like war are especially against TikTok for that. And they're against Elon Musk as well, because the anti-war position has been mainstreamed, which is also important. And I hope that Trump will be able to kind of feed off that as well, and realize that a lot of people who voted for him are still the sorts of people that don't want him to get America driven into wars again. So he's been able to get a lot of that from social media, a lot of support in that way. Younger people who previously might not have been interested, seeing the information on TikTok, seeing the information on Twitter, and voting for him. So I think that's been the big thing, has been the social media that's really helped get him through there. Because it's not as if like young people are reading newspapers or anything like that, which they would have been reading, you know, back 20 years ago. That's kind of ended. The legacy media doesn't hold that power anymore. So, and Trump, of course, himself was really going hard. Elon Musk himself was really going hard in promoting Trump. And okay, so Musk may have his own business interests in mind when he's doing that, but at the same time, he's also appears to be genuinely committed to the idea of free political speech. So in that sense, Trump has really benefited from Musk as an individual as well. So Elon has been central to this, no question about it. And another thing, there's been a big, since 2020, there's been a lot of people on social media who have become influential podcasters and influential TikTok influencers and so on. And they've helped to mainstream Trump's position. I'm thinking of podcasters like Joe Rogan, and there's other smaller podcasters as well that themselves have followings of millions of people, mainly younger people. And I'm thinking of a bunch of guys who are like pranksters that are called the Nelk Boys, and they do kind of crazy pranks that have a kind of political twist that's sympathetic to the kind of thing that Trump's about. And I saw a video recently of them going about, and they asked a liberal woman if she would sign a form for homeless immigrants, and she signed it. And so what they pulled up a bus, and all these immigrants came out and tried to get into her house. In fact, we've got the video, and we'll just run this just now.
So you would do anything for like all the illegals and stuff?
I think we have to be fair.
Guys, this is great. I think we found a new home for you guys.
What guys?
There you go.
Is that your bus?
Yeah.
I don't understand what this is all about.
This is all the immigration. They're gonna move into your house.
They are not.
What do you mean? You just said you wanted to support everyone, though.
Okay, that I don't.
No, they're
Guys,
not violent. They're not violent. They're good. They're
no, hop it! Like just like you guys did before.
Thank you very much.
Can they stay for dinner? Wait.
Sorry.
Well, we have your signature. You guys got to drive back down south.
Back to Home Depot.
Can they stay for dinner? So just things like that, they get massive traction on social media, massive traction on TikTok, and making a political point as well. And so Trump's been lucky that he's had guys like that, you know, on his side to help move the debate his way, and to help move the votes his way also. And when you saw Trump's campaign, I saw him more often on podcasts than I ever saw him sitting down with the legacy media. So he's made the decision, obviously, that the legacy media are not really for him, and the best way and a more effective way of reaching out to people is through these new forms of media, which is very interesting, I think. And that's a heavy reason why he won. However, more ominously, he has had powerful people on his side this time round as well. And for example, back in 2016, and 2020, there were people who called themselves never Trumpers, people who would never vote for Trump, people who thought Trump was literally, on the fringes of the extremes. And one of them was J.D. Vance. Okay, J.D. Vance was a never Trumper. J.D. Vance compared Hitler to a certain German fellow in the 1930s. Now, J.D. Vance is now the vice president. So does that mean that J.D. Vance has had a genuine epiphany? Or does it just mean that the guy's looking out for himself? I don't know. But there's lots of people like J.D. Vance who, originally when push came to shove, they were on the wrong side, and now they're on Trump's side. So that's kind of ominous in a way, and it makes me a little bit apprehensive. And I hope, but hey, Trump knows what he's doing, presumably. He knows what he's doing, but the people who are against him then are kind of for him now. So that's made it a little bit easier as well. And you may have noticed, but the mainstream legacy media were not really going hard in on Trump in the way that they did so in 2016 and 2020. And they were either soft pedaling it a bit, or they were agnostic on the whole matter as well. So that makes you wonder what's going on there. And my answer is that I don't know for sure. I don't know for sure, but I hope that he's still the same man. I hope that he's still anti-globalization. He certainly seems to be. He's still against mass immigration, although again, he's been making ominous noises about encouraging more legal immigration, which is really not a consistent, coherent position. And one of the reasons he's doing that is he's getting money from Silicon Valley millionaires who want more immigration, who want lots of, for example, Indians to work in Silicon Valley. So he is subject to their concerns, but everybody's wondering, well, when he gets into power, is he going to follow them, or is he going to follow his base? Because more immigration of any kind, legal or illegal, is not what his base wants, and it's not why most people voted for him, and it's not what they would expect from him. Nobody voted for Donald Trump because they wanted more immigration, unless you were an immigrant yourself and were hoping that the rest of your family could come in. And in fact, one or two of his comments have been extremely what you might call anti-immigration. In fact, there were placards up at his last rally saying mass deportation now. In fact, I think we've got a picture of the placards. Let's put that up there. But mass deportation now is, that's heavy, strong rhetoric. And there you go. So these were being held up. Now, even back in 2016, you wouldn't have been seeing that sort of rhetoric. So that's really quite remarkable. Okay. So he is continuing to shift the dial in that way. And of course, the Democrats, he would lose because a lot of people just didn't vote Democrat this time around. And there'd be various reasons for that, I'm sure. A lot of Democrats probably weren't very happy with Biden and Kamala's apparent support for a certain country in the Middle East. So a lot of people would not like Kamala's and Biden's pro-Israel position. A lot of Democrats are, of course, against that. So they wouldn't want to vote for her this time around. And And I think a lot of Democrats would be like a lot of Republicans. They would simply see Kamala and say, she's not credible. She's got no gravitas. And you have to have a certain degree of gravitas in order to be considered president. You know, Hillary had more gravitas than Kamala. And Joe Biden, even when he was hiding in his cellar in 2020, had more gravitas than Kamala. And so that would be a big part of it as well. If the Democrats were able to have found an effective media performer, then of course we could be living in a different world right now. And so Trump was perhaps lucky in that regard also. And in fact, somebody pointed out on Twitter today, he's the only man in history to have denied not one woman the presidency, but denied 2 women the presidency, which was true. So what does this mean then? What does this mean for the United Kingdom? Before I answer that question, let's read out some of your comments. Sandy's watching from America says, God bless America and Britain. Knights Hospitaller says, I don't think Trump is perfect. He's not very good for European defense, such as NATO, but at least he knows how to handle the Chinese Communist Party vis-a-vis trade wars and the Taiwan question. Oh, Taiwan, crying out loud. There's all of that, isn't there? Well, Taiwan's probably safe now. I think it was perhaps a little bit perilous under Biden, but I think the Chinese will back off at this precise moment. Carusius Caesar says, thumbs up from Canada. Liam says, can you wish my mate Turkey Boy a happy birthday? Well, happy birthday, sir. TC says he can't wait to see President Trump give Stasi Starmer and Lammy the dangerous buffoon a right mouthful. Yeah. Which should be good to see. Jay says, well done, America, from Glasgow. Catherine's glad that Trump is in. Hippie Jay says, Trump USA, let's go. M. Viking says, they won the presidency, the House and the Senate and the popular vote, which equals a mandate. And Trump just took Michigan. Yes, absolutely. That's one of the Rust Belt states. We knew it was going to go that way, just didn't we? Even though Detroit is always a headache. Christopher Glenn says, Trump's election is a direct result of a political establishment that has time and time again ignored the mood of the people and their aspirations, from the need to curb immigration to providing help for working families. Sounds kind of familiar. Lee says, it's certainly a great lift for free speech, as Facebook must now come under legal pressure to stop shadow banning liberty's most vociferous supporters. Be interesting to see if Trump does anything about tech censorship, or to what extent he just may have to go along with some of the big powerful tech companies. Depends, as we know, on bread and what sides are buttered for certain customers. Knights Hospitaller says, Xi Jinping is now rescheduling his Taiwan plan. Eric says, under his presidency, things are going to get interesting. What's going to happen in Ukraine? A few of his fellow Republicans aren't over keen to help Ukraine. The Israel-Hamas thing, what's he going to do there? He was responsible for shifting the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. He's very anti-China, but not sure what his position is on protecting Taiwan. Well, the Israel one is the big question, isn't it? Because that's going to have huge implications for the West and refugees running our way. So we shall see. John is not convinced by it all. He believes it's a psychological operation, nothing more. Sorry to blackpill. Well, who knows? Who knows? Jim says, well done to the Donald. Oksana says he thinks he will sort Ukraine out, by which you mean bringing peace, I presume, because he seems to be suggesting that he wants to stop that conflict, which is going to be one of the things that will be relevant for Britain if he does, because, well, we were told last week by Rachel Reeves that she wants to give Ukraine $3 billion a year. Well, she's only going to do that so long as America is also chipping in. So if Trump somehow pulls out or negotiates a settlement there, then that will at least be some money that we'll be saving. Which brings us into the wider matters of how does Trump's victory affect Britain and help us in various ways. Well, the first thing I think is that it is a victory for freedom of speech. Not just in the USA, but in the world and, of course, in the United Kingdom. And that means Elon Musk is going to be free to continue to use Twitter and allow Twitter to be a free speech platform. If the Democrats had won, Elon Musk himself and the status of Twitter would be up for grabs. And people would try, no doubt, to censor him. But Trump does believe, I believe, in freedom of political speech. And Elon Musk does as well. And so freedom of speech, freedom of political speech is fairly well protected now. Now, of course, powerful people can put the screws on anybody to make them change their mind or to make them deep six certain content or shadow ban certain content that they don't like and so on. And all of these things might happen, but there's less chance of it, I think. We're entering a period where hopefully for the next 4 years or so, we will have freedom of speech on the internet, especially on Twitter. And what that will do is as people go to Twitter for their news, the legacy platforms like YouTube and Instagram and Facebook are going to themselves have to open up the choice a little bit as well, because they're going to be struggling for customers. And so they're going to lighten their restrictions a bit as well. So hopefully with a powerful free speech enhanced, free speech backed Twitter, the legacy media platforms themselves will also open up a little bit. So I think it's looking good for freedom of speech. And looking good for freedom of speech means it's looking good for all sorts of alternative political points of view and parties as well. Because without words, there can be no action. And so if you have freedom of speech on the internet, you're going to have more political freedom of speech in the rest of reality as well. So it's going to move the legacy media our way. And our political points of view, whatever they may be, are going to be heard and are going to have a better chance of being successful. And we're going to be able to move politics towards our talking points. It'll help move political rhetoric our way. And we're already seeing that. I mean, mass deportations now, say the Trump supporters at a Trump rally. Okay, that's definitely moving the Overton window, as they call it, named after Mr. Overton, our way. The permissible discussion moves our way. And when that happens, only good things can result. Whether they'll be able to, of course, do mass deportations, that's another thing, because that depends upon who's on Trump's team. That depends if this time round he's got people who have got his back. It depends if this time round he's got people who share his vision and who can apply it in reality and can stand up to the mainstream media when the mainstream media tries to stop that from happening. It's all up in the air, isn't it? But at least the direction of travel has been made clear. And for us here in the United Kingdom, that means that the immigration message is also going to be opened up as well. The immigration restrictionist message is going to be opened up. And we here in the United Kingdom are going to feel freer in talking about that. And we're going to be freer in talking about deportation for illegals, for example, or criminals and so on. So it's all going to go into the political mix, and it's going to make things better for us. It will basically help to put immigration control back on the political agenda. It's going to be good for health. And we know this because remarkably, and one of the most amazing things of the last year was the entrance of Robert Kennedy Jr. into the Trump team. And there's talk that Robert Kennedy Jr. is going to be made something important in the health in health, because remember, in America, you don't need to be elected to be in the cabinet, you're appointed. So if Robert Kennedy Jr. gets in, you're going to hear lots of debates. You're going to hear lots of rhetoric against the pharmaceutical industrial complex, which is going to be just amazing, basically, because RFK Jr., as he's called, he's going to be getting to the bottom, so he says, of what actually happened in 2020. He's going to be looking at how all this compulsory medication came about. You know, he's very much opposed to these things. So he's going to be bringing into consciousness stuff that only a few of us hitherto have been aware of. Only those of us who have followed his work for several years. He's going to be bringing it in to mass consciousness, which is going to just be incredible if he's able to do that. So God willing, he'll be able to do that. He's going to open up a lot of minds, and make America healthier again as well. Economically, I've heard rumors that he might even bring on in Ron Paul, who's very famous as an opponent of the Federal Reserve and who ran for Republican nominee twice, I believe in 2008 and 2012. Ron Paul was very good as far as nationalist economics is concerned, pro-American economics. Whether Trump will be able to get a man like that in against the orthodoxy, against the orthodox economists who surround him, I don't know. But these are all possibilities as well. So it could be good economically, and that will allow us, of course, at this side of the pond, to also talk about these things for our own country. National economic sovereignty. The woke agenda, to the extent that that's going on, Trump and his team will be openly opposed to that. And so that's going to have a carryover effect as well into the United Kingdom, to put the wokeists on the back foot. And the big question, of course, which I've left to the end, is the question of war and peace, because that's ultimately what's going to be facing the world. We're in a perilous situation as far as that's concerned. Trump has spoken about wanting to end the war in Ukraine. And if he's able to do that, not only will he save a lot of money and lives, but he'll put the British establishment, which Tory or Labour have been for the war in Ukraine, he'll put them into a very difficult position, because the British establishment couldn't continue to prosecute a war against Ukraine and Russia without America. So that will really shake things up. So I think one man who'll be worried tonight will be Zelensky, wondering just how that's all going to go down. And then, of course, there's the whole Middle East conflict. And I know a lot of right-wingers, so-called, they support the Israel side. Our position is we don't support any side. We want peace in the Middle East, because the way we see it is, if you have war in the Middle East, the only thing that comes from war in the Middle East, whether it's Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, or Iraq, is hundreds of thousands of refugees coming our way. And if that was to get worse, if the situation in the Middle East was to get worse, then it will be a catastrophe from which Europe would never recover. And so we can only hope that Trump is the man to somehow get that reined in a bit. And he might well be, because he said today, I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. That was his quote. So he could be the peacemaker. He could be the peacemaker, which would be amazing. Because it's like, 2024 isn't like the 18th and 19th centuries, when Britain was able to go around the world fighting wars and there wasn't any blowback to us. Like today, in our interconnected world where we can travel across continents in a matter of hours, we can't prosecute wars outside of the UK without blowback, either immediate or long term. And so really, war should be going out of fashion. It should be going out of fashion in the modern world, because nobody benefits from it. It's statesmanship and diplomacy, which we all need at this time, and cool heads as well. So I think that Trump is more likely to be a cool head on these matters. If he is a cool head, then that will be a great gift that he's given Britain, because it will save us from another refugee influx. And it will allow us over the next few years to try to deal with the ones that we've got here already. So pray for his safety is all I can say. Pray for his safety, because there's a lot of people that are not going to like that. There's a lot of people who don't want peace. So I think that's all I want to say about how it's going to benefit the United Kingdom. I think that's a lot of things, a lot of ways in which it is going to benefit the United Kingdom. The Pork report says the West needs to end all refugee and asylum policies. I totally agree with you there. It's a point of view which has passed its time. Again, it's one of these things in an interconnected world where you can travel across continents in a matter of hours. It needs to be rethought, because the UN Convention on Refugees, which requires us to take them in, and the ECHR, which prohibits us from getting rid of them, these were made up after World War II. The world is a completely different place now. A completely different place. It all needs to be rethought. A lot of people don't want to rethink it, though, because they're happy with what's going on. But we need to rethink it, and I think that we will in the next few years. We don't agree with Robert. The UK is. There's always tomorrow, Robert. There's always tomorrow, and no matter how bad it looks, it can be worse, and it can be better. And so it's about fighting the good fight. Lee says, this is a victory only made possible by free speech on the internet, which has become its only home and last refuge due to the liberalist monopoly of mainstream media, which was accomplished by the osmotic infiltration of university indoctrinated Guardian readers, whose elbows now rest upon every single desk in the establishment pyramid hierarchy. Well, that's largely correct. Although no doubt they read all sorts of papers, but it is the academics, it is the people who run the NGOs and people who run the so-called charities. And I came up with a term yesterday to describe those people. I call them now the invasion migration sector. The invasion migration sector. Because I came up with this because I'm writing the volume 2 of A Big Book for the Union. And I noticed that those people, those academics, they've come up with terms like climate migration to make you feel sorry for people who are apparently running away from bad weather. And they've come up with the phrase survival migration, which is to describe people who apparently have got no food or something like that. And I thought they're awfully clever in coming up with those terms to create issues around things and then say, are you against climate migration? And so I thought, well, what describes what they want, really? They want our country to be invaded. So how about we call them the invasion migration sector? So I'm going to try to popularize that term. It will definitely be appearing in A Big Book for the Union, Volume 2. Talking about A Big Book for the Union, Volume 2, please do get yourself Volume 1 of A Big Book for the Union, which is One Big Country. And you get that from Amazon. Simply go to amazon.co.uk and search for One Big Country. And you will get it. It's only $9.99. Only $9.99, including postage if you're on Prime. And what this one does is it celebrates, advocates, and educates on the Great British Union, otherwise known as the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. This knowledge has been forged on the front line and honed in the heat of the action to defend, maintain, and promote our one big country. And I can assure you that our Volume 2 of One Big Country will be written in such snappy style and in such snappy tones and comprehensive and coherent and concise tones. So folks, please do make sure you get it when it comes out. In the meantime, help us by searching Amazon for One Big Country and buying that book. You won't regret it, and you'll keep this show on the road. This is one of the very few shows in the United Kingdom that is promoting the Union of the UK and is promoting immigration restriction and is speaking against the invasion migration sector and attempting to expose them. Do you know what? We never had time for our competition tonight, but that's just the way things goes. Daniel says, refugees should be made to repatriate when the wars are over. Bang on, absolutely. And the West has established it's safe for them to return and rebuild their countries that they fled. That's correct. Only trouble is if it's a country that we're hostile to or at war with, or one that we've just previously bombed or something like that, we generally just allow all the refugees to come in and they don't get sent back, which is another reason not to get involved in their internal conflicts, which they're going to be having for the rest of the time. So Catherine says, let's hope Dawn makes America great again. St. Thomas of Acre says, Trump said he will be able to end the war in Ukraine. I hope he does and let it end in a favorable way. Hopefully. Things are moving in our direction, says Christopher. Mons says, hopefully Trump will pressure Starmer to release our political prisoners. There you go. I wonder what he'll do with the January 6 people that are possibly still in prison in America. I don't know. Oksana thinks that he will stop the conflict in Ukraine. Cool. I hope you like the flag. I'm afraid we don't have any of these for sale. We sold out of these last year. What we do have, though, is a saltire one. We're down to our last saltire one. Let's get a picture of that up. Where are we? We've got that one. If you want that one, you can get it at our shop. Other things that we've got at our shop include our Battle of Britain flag and our World War I greeting cards commemorating the 110th years of the Great War, which we will, of course, be remembering. This Sunday is Remembrance Sunday. Okay, folks, thank you very much for watching. It's the top of the hour. We're not going to be back next week or the week after. And the reason for that is we are got to get this book done. Got to get this book done. It's a national duty to finish volume 2 of a big book for the Union. But we will see you again. Please do check in regularly. We'll be broadcasting every day, of course, as we always do on Facebook. Posting, I should say, every day on Facebook and Twitter and on TikTok and on Instagram and on YouTube. So please check us out every day for our daily posts, as always. Just remains for me to say, God bless the United Kingdom and God save the King. See you next time.